Welcome to another episode of Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement Podcast, where certified financial planner Loren Sherman shares thoughts on having a healthy mind, body, and spirit, an abundance of wealth inside portfolios and out, and lessons learned from clients and mentors over the years.
Hello, everyone. As always, I am your humble host, Loren Sherman. Today's show is titled What I Learned from 67,161 Push-Ups. To say that 2020 was a year filled with challenges would be a massive understatement. Everyone had to come to terms with a new normal way of life. For most, this meant masks and social distancing, perhaps learning how to use Zoom, FaceTime, or other communication services. For others, it was figuring out how to teach their kids from home or sending them to school with a whole new set of guidelines and expectations. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge that it was a year some of us had to say goodbye to loved ones. This is never easy, but perhaps even more challenging under the circumstances. With that said, I write these articles to share things I've learned, investment insights, planning strategies, health tips, and in general, takeaways that are both actionable and have a positive influence on your retirement. So to tell this story of what I learned, we have to turn back the clock to December of 2019, when handshakes were the norm, masks were mostly used for painting, and the term social distancing wasn't really in our vocabulary. December 2019, an idea was born. As I was working through some intensive financial planning classes for the WMCP designation, which stands for Wealth Management Certified Professional, I found myself a bit out of balance, spending many hours studying and any remaining time working with clients. I had completely neglected my workout routine, which was basically non-existent at this point. I remember hearing that the best way to improve something is to keep track of it. So in mid-December of 2019, I started to record the days I worked out. I'm not much for New Year's resolutions, but heading into 2020, I decided I would add another element to bring some more consistency to my workouts, a push-up per day. I got the idea about 10 years ago when I met a group of friends at a wedding who were all seeing how many days of the year they could go. January 1st, they did 1 push-up, January 2nd, 2, all the way to December 31st for 365 on the last day of the year, or 366 in the case of 2020. At the time, I thought it was a pretty strange idea and not all that logical since you'd be working out the same muscles over and over, neglecting others. But much of life isn't necessarily about optimizing everything. It's about keeping your momentum and simply continuing on a path. Dave Ramsey talks about paying off debt in much the same way, saying it's more important to keep the momentum of closing out debt rather than focusing on interest rates. Doing the same thing over and over may not be ideal, but you're sure to see results faster and therefore, hopefully, keep your momentum moving in the right direction. In the past, I put this same concept of small daily commitments yielding big results to the test, as I devoted just 20 minutes each morning to reading. The cumulative effort after 3 years and many skipped days was still a tally of over 150 books. My pace has slowed a bit since then, but the habit has stuck. So this was my inspiration for my daily push-up challenge, logical or not. 6 lessons learned from a year of push-ups. First, many things in life are easy to do, which also makes them easy not to do. There was not any single day that doing X number of push-ups was particularly challenging, but the tricky part was the commitment to stick with it each day. Some ideas to make your habits more sticky include track your progress, build habits into your routine, keep your end goal in mind, and automate positive behaviors as much as possible. I'll let you in on a little secret. I actually wrote an article about this before I had finished my goal. This brings up another idea to make your habits more sticky. Share them with others for added accountability. Second, if you have something to do, get started and it will only get easier with the momentum you have created. The first set of push-ups each morning was always the hardest of the day. Once I had broken through that barrier and my muscles were awake, the rest got easier. As with most things in life, We know what needs to be done, but procrastination can get in the way. I've found the worry that accompanies procrastination is almost always worse than the task itself. Third, big goals come in bite-sized steps. In January, I didn't do the math to figure out how many push-ups this would add up to for the year, which was probably a good thing. For me, looking at the final goal can be inspiring in some cases, but feel like too big of a hill to climb in others. When the goal is positive in nature, it may be helpful to keep the big picture in front of you for encouragement and to help you stay on track. In other cases, keeping a laser focus on one day at a time might be better. This could change from goal to goal and even from person to person, so it's probably best to do some trial and error to see what works for you. In either case, you cannot reach your final goal without taking incremental steps one day at a time. Fourth, balance in life is key, but don't overlook immersion. We think of balance as perfectly centered down the middle, but real change often happens by immersing yourself into something completely, which leads to zigs and zags. You cannot create enough heat for a fire unless you keep the magnifying glass focused on one spot long enough. In life, you'll never want to completely lose focus of family, faith, your career, or whatever else is most important to you, but sometimes change requires a disproportionate amount of your time and energy, especially big changes. Going all in rather than dipping your toes in creates momentum, actually releasing endorphins that keep us coming back. Fifth, sticking to your goals through the ups and downs is more important than trying to be perfect. Going back to the reading example, there were many days that I missed my 20-minute target for the morning, but this did not deter me from continuing the next day. Same with my push-up routine. The first and only day I missed on the year came in August, and it would have been easy to call it quits and tell myself I made a good effort. I sometimes see this when reviewing people's retirement plans. It's easy to tell ourselves that improvements at age 65 or 75 don't matter because we weren't perfect or we messed up 10 or 20 years ago. Deep down, we all know it's never too late to make the right decisions and to continue working toward our goals. Sixth, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. When you're going to do something as crazy as a push-up per day or reaching after bigger goals, you have to be okay being in the minority and having others look at you funny. Positive change often requires courage and going against the grain, so when you inevitably feel a bit uncomfortable, it's best to acknowledge and embrace it rather than run from it. One of my favorite quotes from Mark Twain resonates. When you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. I encourage you to think about whatever habits you've always wanted to create, but maybe they've been on the back burner for years. Once you have your list, pick one or two that are most important, and of course the next step, start today. I know this episode was a bit different than some of our typical conversations, but hopefully you were able to find one or two techniques that you can apply in your own life. We will be back in 2 weeks to chat more. Until then, check out the show notes for any links or resources that we discussed on the show. Or if you'd like to meet our team and learn more, head on over to healthywealthywiseretirement.com.
Thank you so much for listening and supporting this podcast. If you've enjoyed listening, we would love if you took a quick moment to leave an honest review. Of course, we're shooting for 5 stars, but if you have suggestions to improve the show, we would love to hear from you too. Just click on the podcast name, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement Podcast, and scroll down to ratings and review. Thanks again for your support, as this helps us reach a wider audience and help even more retirees just like you. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a specific tax, legal, or investment advice. Loren Sherman is a certified financial planner and co-owner of Integrity Wealth Management, an investment advisor serving retirees in search of their own healthy, wealthy, and wise retirement lifestyle.